Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Oreos Master, or the Gumbies, and I'm going to be doing some commentaries on some keys in the War Within Season 3 for Frost Mage. I've done this in previous seasons, and I kind of want to start getting into track of it again, just getting in the habit of it. I am in title range as of right now as I'm making the video, uh, through all pugs playing Frost Mage, which is probably considered one of like the worst specs right now. But I kind of want to get back into the commentary for um, like tips and tricks and stuff, and where I'm setting cooldowns and all those things. And so yeah, let's just get right into it. This is a 17 Eco Dome. So these are the talents I'm running for the Eco Dome. There is a spell steal in this dungeon, or two spell steals actually. I don't really care about one of the spell steals, but there's another one that I do use pretty frequently. So make sure you have spell steal for this key. You do not need to remove curse. Other than that, everything in this tree is pretty much like you can choose basically whatever you need. The only like damage nodes is your things down the middle of the tree. So these two talents are damage nodes. Ice Nova is a damage node. Shifting Power. These are damage nodes, and then your bottom of the tree, you're basically always going to be taking this set. Sometimes you can take this set, or you can change this, but you always want Ice Cold, you always want this, and you always want Mass Barrier. But other than that, a lot of the other talents you can kind of mismatch whatever you'd like. These three nodes, actually there's kind of like five right here. The Cryo Freeze, the Diverted Energy, and then your reduced magic damage. Those 5 points are kind of all interchangeable to however you want. Personally, I just always go with this. I don't care too much about this Ice Block cooldown just because we have 2 blocks already with Cold Snap. And then I kind of always try and play a little bit around Diverted Energy if I can, so unless I know I need a shield for like a one hit, I typically try and wait until I get like hit a little bit so that my Diverted Energy can actually heal a little bit. But it's not something that's required. I would not really play around that much. And then for these two middle talents, both of these are both entirely interchangeable. I have always been an Ice Flows user versus a Shimmer user. Personally, just because I enjoy being able to like just move and cast a little bit versus having to shimmer and plan around shimmering to like the farther distance that it goes versus Ice Flows. There is also a few instances this season where Blink is actually more beneficial than Shimmer. It allows you to get out of stuns and things like in Streets you can get out of the first boss interrogation. And then I am running Frostfire. Spell Slingers, they're pretty much equal, but Spell Slingers a little bit like I don't enjoy it as much. Plus, it's like a very few buttons, and I'm not a huge fan of that playstyle. Plus, I've just played Frostfire for a little bit and kind of like it a little more. There is a lot more min-maxing with Frostfire in terms of when to use the excess buffs. I don't care too much about it. I know I'm definitely going to be making some mistakes, and I'm going to be going through them as well in the video of mistakes that I make. But that is another reason that I'm running Frostfire, that I'm running Dragon's Breath. The only reason is because this top right hero talent here reduces fire spells cooldowns by 33%. So instead of having a 45-second Dragon's Breath, or if you had the other node Supernova, you now have, I believe it's a 33-second one. So I try and run Dragon's Breath over Supernova just for that. A lot of mages are running Supernova. I don't really think there's that much of a difference. I think Supernova might be a little bit longer of a stun because not only does it stun, but it knocks them up, and then they have to land again. Versus Dragon's Breath is just like a quick disorient. But yeah, other than that, this is pretty much your base tree. There's not really anything you can change in your spec tree, unfortunately. Your spec tree is pretty set in stone, which is one of the downsides of Frost currently. There's not really much you can move around. The things you can maybe like move around is your point in Splintering Cold, going to like Frostbite or Slick Ice or Cold. You can't actually do Cold Front or Frozen Touch, but pretty much this is your set in stone M+ tree, and there's basically nothing you can do to change this. In M+, you always need your AoE talents. So your Orb cooldown from Blizzard, you need Freezing Rain, and then you need Coldest Snap, which requires you to take Freezing Winds as well. And then obviously you're always running Glacier Spike, and currently with Frostfire it's best for you to run DC, Death Chill. I'll refer to it as DC a lot of the time. There is a build that you can kind of run without DC. It sims slightly less, like Spell Slinger doesn't run DC. but I always still run it as Frostfire. So let's just get into the key. Again, this is a full pug on a 17. This group did just time a 16. I timed a 16 prior with this group. I want to say it was a Arakara. So this first pull, I'm always targeting. I have my focus frame right here. I always target focus one of the mites. The mites are the only thing that are casting in this pull, and they do the gorge. And the gorge just makes it so they do an explosion, kind of like bursting whenever they die. So trying to interrupt as many of those as you can. Otherwise, my main focus is always going to be the Ravenous Destroyer. And I'm pretty much always popping mirror images on cooldown as well, just because there will be damage going out throughout the fight from the Gorgers when they do their AoE slam, which was what dropped the pools. Other than that, basically just starting, you always want to get to a minimum of, I believe the minimum is 10 DC stacks when you're in AoE. I kind of play around with it. Sometimes I go to 12, which you're going to be going to 12 basically every time. Just because you're casting 4 Frostfire bolts with, when you're in Icy Veins, it's spreading an AoE, so it's getting 3 stacks every cast. But I believe the number you should be getting to is a minimum of 10. Sometimes I go 12, sometimes I go 15. Kind of depends. I kind of play around with it depending on how many mobs there are and how fast I can get my orb cooldown back. Because directly after you get your 12 DC stacks, you're going into your Cone of Cold combo. So if I have like 10 seconds left on my orb and I'm in an AoE pack, I typically try and cast another Frostfire Bolt to get that 15 stacks so that I can then do Orb, Comet Storm, Cone of Cold, Comet Storm, Orb. Kind of just guaranteeing another orb versus wasting it. So that's what I did here. My orb wasn't up right before I had my when I got 12 stacks. So I did another Frostfire Bolt just to get the 15th. Now I can do my orb, Comet Storm, Cone, Comet Storm, Orb. One thing that I also try doing pretty frequently is, not required, it does a little bit more AoE damage, is I'll always make sure I'm shifting powering directly after I Blizzard. They changed it from Season 2 to Season 3 when now your Blizzard is actually the full duration. The duration of your Blizzard is the same as your hasted cooldown of Blizzard. Last season it used to be slightly less, so you could actually have multiple Blizzards out, which got kind of annoying to play around with. So now sometimes actually to get the value out of shifting power, I sometimes wait. So like here I just did that, I orbed, or I Blizzard, then shifting powered, and then Blizzarded again. This you'll see my orb cooldown will actually be coming back a little faster, because I'm having 2 Blizzards ticking at the same time. So this actually will do a little bit more AoE damage. It's not as required because our focus a lot this tier is going to be our priority damage. That's kind of like what our replacement in the meta comp is. We're competing with like Arcane Mage's spot, which a vast majority of the time you're always going to be Arcane Mage will always take your spot, which is kind of just unfortunate. But I do kind of want to go back through. I am not casting Glacial Spike as often as I should be. It should basically be your top priority as soon as you're able to. I don't miss it a whole lot. I think I'm wasting an Icicle here or there, but I'm also paying attention to the Gorge cast quite a bit. So like this one I'm paying attention to make sure it actually gets kicked. The DK actually ended up bringing it in. Here I G-Invis just because I know damage was coming out with the Gorgers, the slams. As soon as the Destroyers dies, you should be focusing on the Gorgers. They do, it's called like Gorging Smash or something, which does an AoE hit. You want to make sure you're focusing that. So then this next pull, it's Gorgers, the Scavengers, preferably. I like to save these Scavengers and bring these ones into boss. It helps a little bit with our funnel damage, which Frost does have a little bit of funnel, plus it means we always have 3 targets for our Cone of Cold combos. But there's kind of a nuanced thing with this boss for Cone of Cold, so I wouldn't really worry a whole lot about that. But then in this pack, I always focus one of the Destroyers. Now, it does kind of suck, the timings here. You don't have your Icy Veins up, but it comes up like mid-pull. So I think here I probably should be shifting powering almost as soon as I can and trying to get my my Icy Veins back. Now, if you have a Volatile Ejection on you, basically always pop a big defensive. I would be very careful, which I'm not a huge fan that this always does this, but if you have something like this on you and you G-Invis, it will retarget somebody, and I'm not a fan of that personally. Just because in that case you're not really using it as a defensive, you're using it more as a shadow meld. It still kind of serves the same purpose, but in this case, when you have a volatile ejection going off, just use one of your ice colds. On this key, I believe even with the barrier, it might still one-shot me. I know without a barrier, it one-shots me 100%. There's a website called Not Even Close where you can look this up, but basically there's no other time where you're going to be needing to use your ice cold, so just use one of your ice colds here. Now here's my Icy Veins again, immediately trying to get into my 12 stacks. One thing that does happen, I'm not sure if it's a bug or what, but if you're casting a Frostfire Bolt and you get an empowered Frostfire Bolt, I'll rewind to see if I can slow it down. Actually, we'll just show it here. Okay, so you see I'm at 3, I'm casting one. I procced an empowered Frostfire Bolt, and because I was already had pre-casted my next Frostfire Bolt, it immediately just sends it, but it doesn't benefit from Death's Chill. Not really sure why this happens. So you see my Death's Chill counter is at 7, it only sends one bolt. This only happens if you're currently casting a Frostfire Bolt and start pre-casting, or have the spell queued for your next Frostfire Bolt, and then it becomes an empowered Frostfire Bolt. This will stop your Death's Chill, and it will only do 1 stack versus the 3. Instances like this is when I try to get like 13 stacks then, so I'll do like 1 extra cast. Yeah, I ended up going to 13 instead of stopping at the 10. I did see, I tried just hitting Cone of Cold there, thinking that I was at 12 stacks, it's time to do my Cone of Cold. That wasn't off cooldown. So this is one of the instances where I did not have an Ice Cold up because I'd used it 30 seconds ago, and I don't have it up in time. I had Alter timed when I was at full health, and kind of just trusted on my healer. You see I Alter here. The healer actually was able to heal me enough that it didn't really matter, and I used my barrier as well, which was nice. I'm not really sure what happened, if the mob died or not. It doesn't look like he did. But I barriered. Okay, so it looked like it did. I was at like 60%, I was getting healed. I had my barrier plus my diverted energy, and it brought me back. Those are instances where the diverted energy will actually help you save those one-shots, because from what I've seen looking at logs and stuff, the diverted energy actually procs before the damage the damage instance happens. So you'll effectively have slightly more health than what your full health plus shield is. Not sure if that's actually true or not. I haven't played around with that, and I don't really want to play around with that just based on how dangerous that is. But it does seem that it kind of adds a little bit of extra health. Now for this boss, I have a specific set of cooldowns that I use. Normally you'll be getting probably 2, if not 3 intermissions. The way I plan around here, I always have Comet Storm up for when the Invading Shriek, I believe is what it's called, happens. I will always try and Cone of Cold this first set of... It is called Invading Shriek. This first set of mites. This lines it up then so that I don't get it for the second set, but then I get it for intermission. And then after that, I'm just always saving it for intermissions because there's not enough time for me to use it every other one. And the reason I do that is because I save my Cone of Cold to basically hard carry one of the own sets of mites in the intermission, so we can kind of focus more on boss damage. Now, what I do here is, if I have the opportunity to, I pre-blizzard on my feet, or on the feet of where we're all at, and then I'll target one of the mites immediately, basically as soon as they spawn. When they jump in, I Comet Storm them, and then I'll use my... Here is my Cone of Cold combo. If I don't have my Cone of Cold combo, which you'll see on this next set, I will Comet Storm into an Ice Nova. That way, as long as we're all stacked, when they jump to us, I'll Comet Storm, they'll Ice Nova, they'll be frozen in place, and they will all get shattered by that first Comet Storm. Now, the way I deal with the Toxic Regurgitation, I always make sure I'm at full health here in the center, or as close as I can, and I will alter time and blink out, and get this as far away as possible. You can do it the way that this might spawn in intermission, is they spawn in the cardinal directions, so north, south, east, west. I personally don't really think that's the best strat, is to place them on those, just because then melee can't deal with it. But I always alter time these. I pay attention to how much this is ticking. So since ticking give me slightly more than 25% per tick, I'm going to take another tick here, and then I'm going to alter time back, and now I'm back. Now here's where I don't have Cone of Cold, so I'll be doing a Comet Storm into my Ice Nova. You see now they're all frozen, and they're all getting hit by my Comet Storm. And then now this is the intermission, so I've been starting to try and to ping them. So this is me pinging which one I'm going to solo. If you can, the best way around this is I have my whole Cone of Cold combo. So you'd have, I have Blizzard, then I have Orb, Comet Storm, Cone of Cold, Comet Storm, Orb. In this instance, I didn't want to wait for the Comet Storm and Orb to come back, so I just set my Cone of Cold combo without the original ones. But you see, I'm basically killing them at the same time as all of the other people are killing their set. It basically almost trivializes like the whole intermission. The only thing you're going to die to really on this boss is if those mites get to the boss, because they give him a damage amp, and which means a lot of the damage will be doing a lot more for everything else. Now, a kind of non-ideal thing, but I do it in terms of making sure I can carry the mite damage, is I do not Comet Storm basically the boss at all. Unless I know I can get one back, so if I have like Shifting Power or something. But again, Comet Storm into an Ice Nova. They're all grouped. And then otherwise, it's just focusing the boss. You see here, I moused over it. I'll try and pause it again on it. I'm doing the third damage to Azekar, but I'm basically hard carrying the mites. I might actually go onto it afterwards and see the damage from everybody else on the mites and stuff like that, but... If you can, try and save a little bit more damage for the boss, just because the ads really aren't too much of an issue. I don't really notice... Okay, so here's where I'm really paying attention to my health. Just because I know how much it was ticking, but again, for here, Comet Storm into my Ice Nova. And then I did Shifting Power here. This will actually get me my Comet Storm back. I probably should not have sent this orb for that reason. Because I was Shifting Powering to get my Comet Storm back in terms of intermission, but now I won't have my orb either. So now here I am going to solo this set. I did my Cone of Cold combo. You see how much faster, even with me just here alone, I soloed this pack, and this pack is at half health. Frost Mage is extremely good for the ads on this fight, so... And now here, I am saving my Icy Veins. I know the next pack's a pretty dangerous pack, plus it has a Sentinel most likely. It really depends on the group. Most groups are pulling a Sentinel in the next pack. So I'm trying to save my Icy Veins, just make sure I have the damage there for the Sentinel. Other than that, it's just pure single target for this. If you can, with our tier set, make sure that you have Winter's Chill on the target before you Glacial Spike. It's obviously, if you have a Glacial Spike, you should send it prior, but in order for your Glacial Spike to get the full Shadow benefit, because your Glacial Spike now sends a Pyroblast, you need to make sure that the target actually has Winter Chills on it before you send your Glacial Spike, because for some weird reason, Frost Mage, all of our damage is calculated, or basically almost all of our damage is calculated on hit, where almost every single other class in the entire game, all of their hits are calculated on cast. So when we have Winter's Chill on the target, we need to make sure when our Glacial Spike is going to hit, that Winter's Chill is going to be on the target for Glacial Spike, but for Pyroblast, which is part of our tier set, it actually needs to be on the target when it's casted instead of on hit. So try and make sure that Winter's Chill is actually on the target before you're doing it or not. It is a min-maxy thing, but still, you should be setting Glacial Spike basically on cooldown. But it will benefit more if you don't. This is actually the first group where I've skipped the Sentinel. I believe our Paladin is going to be using the Shadow Meld pot. Yeah, he just used the Shadow Meld pot, which is nice. I am a huge hater of basically all of the trash mobs in this area. For me, I always target the Ritualists, and the reason I do that as Frost Mage is with our Comet Storm and everything, as well as our Glacial Spike, like we need to have the target actually in front of us. The Ritualist is the only mobs in these packs that don't jump around. I also don't think the Phase Blades jump around, but the Far Stalkers do, and so do the Rune Stalkers, the Lizards. So I basically am always focusing the Ritualists in this pack, and I set a Focus Interrupt to them as well. There is one thing that I learned recently: the Rune Stalkers, the Lizards. The way that they jump is they jump behind people and will dash through them. So if all of you guys can, like, if a Rune Stalker jumped to me right now, it would jump here and dash this way. So a way that you can kind of game where they're jumping to is all be like facing in the same direction, or like facing terrain like this. That way they would jump like into this wall or something. So like this would be an ideal spot for me to be sitting, because if one of them jumps to me, they would jump here and then go straight into the wall here. So other than that, pretty much the same AoE rotation. You want to make sure your Orb and Blizzard are on cooldown, your Comet Storm's on cooldown, you're getting to your at minimum of 10 Death Chill stacks, doing your Chrono Cold combo correctly. Glacial Spike is getting sent on cooldown. And then there is some slight gaming with Excess Frost and Excess Fire. I personally don't do it myself. I believe it's like if you have 2 Excess Fires... I think I kind of do it like by default, just by like playing Frost Mage how I would think to play it, and trying not to overcap on things. But like if you have 2 Excess Fires, it wants you to send an Ice Lance before you send a Comet Storm, just so that you're not overcapping on Excess Fires. Now here, the Sentinels is the main target that you need to be focusing this, like extreme focusing. I am always casting Mirror Image or trying to cast Mirror Image whenever we're focusing or have a Sentinel going. The other thing you can use is using your Alter Time. The Sentinels really will not one-shot you, like ever. They always hit you for probably around like 50% of your health, maybe a little more. Like this one just hit me for, I think it looked like it was about 60% of my health. And you'll know when you got hit by a Sentinel because a pool will spawn under your feet. I think that one was actually just a bolt or something going off, or an arcing zap. But there I had the arcing energy on me. I popped an Ice Cold. There's not a whole lot in this area you'll actually need defensives for, other than when you're fighting the Sentinels. Everything else that you would take damage from is either one, a healer dispel, so that's the arcing energy that's from the Ritualists, or that's from the or the arcing bolt cast from the Ritualists, or the arcing zap cast. Wow, arcing zap cast, which is from the Far Stalkers. So I'm always targeting the Ritualists first. It gets rid of one, a dispel, and I can solo kick. Well, not solo kick, but I'm able to set focus to them and kick the arcing bolts. Otherwise, after that, I focus the Far Stalkers. So you see that's the Arcane Zap that's going off. Other than that, I'm not a huge fan of targeting the Far Stalkers. Which the Far Stalkers are the Lizards, because when they do jump, if you're casting Glacial Spike, or you're targeting them with like Comet Storm or something, if they jump and you Comet Storm, your Comet Storm could be like, if they jump to this person right here, the Hunter, and I Comet Storm, the Comet Storm can be like go all behind them and hit nobody but the one target. So I kind of try and do the mobs that won't really jump anywhere, which is why I do the Ritualists first, and then I do the Farstalkers just because they have the Arcing Zap cast. But I also always try and stay near melee, so that way when they do jump like this, they don't really have to move much back. Another downside with this is if you're casting like Glacial Spike or something and they jump and go behind you, your cast is still going to be happening because it started when they were in your vision or when they were in front of you, but they jump behind you, your cast will finish and your cast actually won't go off. So you're just sitting there doing nothing for that whole duration. This is me focusing Ritualist again, going into the pack, doing my Cone of Cold combo. Unfortunately, my entire second Cone of Cold combo just missed because we knocked. I think we kind of had to knock. There was 2 Arcing Zaps and stuff going off, but again, seems to be something that I'm doing frequently is sending my Blizzard into a shifting power and then immediately sending Blizzard again, just getting as much cooldown back as possible on my orb. Our AoE, our damage profile as Frost Mage is kind of a mix of both AoE and prio damage. Obviously, we're always going to be doing prio damage. All of our spells, we're focusing one mob and basically cleaving off of them. But otherwise, when you're not in your Cone of Cold combo, try and when you use Comet Storm, try and shatter it with Ice Nova. There are some instances where I don't. This is especially instances where you need to be gripping casts and stuff like that, like Halls of Atonement. It's very dangerous to do it in, but so now here's another Sentinel pull. I'm doing my Icy Veins, stacking up Death's Chill, but I'm targeting the Ritualists, and I will be getting kicks on Arcing Bolt whenever it happens. I also like playing in melee. The one upside of running Supernova versus Dragon's Breath, so the AoE talent that I was talking about earlier, is that Supernova goes based on where your target is, not based on where you are. So you can be in full ranged and still use Supernova. I'm almost always in melee anyways, so that's why I'm fine using Dragon's Breath, but if you can, I would also try sending like if you have a barrier or like your images or something, I would try setting those before you do something like Shifting Power, just getting yourself free CDR back for them. Just a little, every little bit helps. So you see I actually got targeted there with a barrier and the Sentinel cast going off. It looks like it does about like, a barrier is about like 30% of your health, maybe 40%. And it hits me down 25% of my health, so it's doing around like 65% of my health. Now for this boss, the way that I play this, you always want to make sure you can actually use your Cone of Cold combo on this boss. Using your Cone of Cold combo is pretty important, especially for the Javelins. I haven't figured out the best instances of where to use it, but you see I have it here. I'm saving it. The only thing with it is you need to make sure you're actually pretty close to each other. Like your Javelins would be Venn diagrammed, basically. Otherwise, your Cold combo won't work. But we actually do very good damage to the Javelins, so. Plus, it helps. We can already we can cleave straight off the boss, or our Glacial Spikes and Ice Lances and stuff can actually hit both Javelins. So we do pretty good damage to them. If you need to during this time, I do want to test out. I want to figure out if G-Invis either cancels. There's 2 things I actually want to test out on this. I want to see if G-Invis cancels the Javelin. Either one pre-cast or once it's already been casted on you. And the other one I want to test out is I want to test out pure Ice Block versus Ice Cold. There is going to be, I think there's going to be 2 keys that I'm going to be running Ice Block on. This might be one of them, and the other one would be Streets, but I'll go into that when I get to Streets. But other than that, I believe just because Arcane Blitz happens so fast in this, I actually save my Icy Veins, just so that I get the damage amp for when both the mobs are actually out. And then for the Arcane Overload things, I almost always pop mirror images. If you don't have mirror images, always have a barrier rolling, and then you can alter time it. Obviously, the first hit is pretty big, and there's a dot. The dot isn't as big as the initial hit, so you can alter time the first thing. Now, when you do bring mobs into here, the mobs that you'll be bringing in will most likely be 2 Phase Blades and a Farstalker. The Phase Blades are only tank damage, and the Farstalker has the Arcing Zap cast. So, and here I always try and target focus the Farstalker so that I can get casts off. And then these are the mobs that also have the spell steal, but I don't really pay attention to it. The Phase Blades have a spell steal called Alacrity. It basically just increases how fast they swing and their movement speed, but I don't really care too much. And now you do see that I have my Cone of Cold up, but I don't actually use my Cone of Cold here just because I want to be using my Cone of Cold only for the Javelin casts, just to make sure that I'm getting as much Javelin damage going out as possible. Basically, the only thing that will kill people in this fight is Javelins or the intermission, the Arcane Overload. So you see here, this is kind of a very bad instance of the Javelins weren't really Venn diagrammed, but fortunately we had mobs here. So I was able to focus the Javelins here with my Glacial Spikes and stuff like that, but other than that, you're basically doing pure prio damage to the boss. When he spawns an intermission, the person will jump off, and the lizard hit is here as well. If you can as well, I'd also alter time the Javelin hit. The original Javelin hit's also pretty hefty. I would also try to save. You don't really necessarily need to save, but if you can, try and save at least a flurry for it, so that way you can Glacial Spike and flurry a Javelin. But it's not really required. That's kind of something that I'm trying to min-max currently to see if it's worth it or not. But you see that our first Arcane Blast basically hit me for 60% of my health. And now I did Ice Cold this one, knowing that it was going to hurt, because I had the last one and I had no other defensives. And now for the intermission, it's the Tabat and Awaz, or however you say the boss's name. What happens once the intermission is done is all your dots from the main person don't transfer over. So if you're trying to do anything, focus the lizard boss. But since our 2 target, we can do things with our Winter's Chill and stuff. You can try and put Winter's Chill on both targets and be hitting both of them. But make sure that when the intermission's running out, you're focusing the lizard boss. Now again here, I kind of messed up because I just sent Cone of Cold, or sorry, I just sent Comet Storm. But I was able to use my Cone of Cold combo again. I wasn't actually focusing the Javelins here, which this was a mistake. You see this second Javelin is actually lasting a significant time. Our healer had to send Bark Skin on himself. I believe it was on them. Maybe been on the DK, but it looked like it was on the other healer. But otherwise, I try saving my Icy Veins if I can for intermission. And then here, I just committed. I wanted to focus the boss. Basically, both of these, I think they had around 60 million health, and the boss was like 140. I just made the decision to focus the boss. Now, in this area, I haven't really decided who I want to target focus in terms of who I'm kicking and stuff. Most of the time, I'll try and do it on the pack speaker, just the arcing bolts, but sometimes the ritualist is good as well. But this is an area where spell steal is pretty important. I really only spell steal the mob we're trying to prile, though. So the Koresh Elementals are what do the spell steal. You see me trying to spell steal this one right now. And in a pack like this, we actually have 3 of the Koresh Elementals. Each of them will cast something. I want to say it's called it's like a Koresh shield. I don't know exactly what it's called. It's but they'll put a pretty big absorb on people, and especially when there's 3 of them, you need to be aware of who you're spell stealing and when. But also be aware because you will run out of mana if you're constantly spell stealing. A lot of the time, I actually focus the elementals here just so they stop putting the barriers on people. But The creepers here basically are only a tank thing. You just need to be aware of the ground effect, which is this. And then the ritualists would just have the common cast. You see I always have my target focus here, that I'll be kicking that mob. But you see here, this is the Embrace. Sorry, it's called Embrace of Koresh. This is the Embrace of Koresh that I'm talking about. I'd say it's probably a 30% shield, maybe 25%. So it is a pretty hefty shield. When you spell steal it, it is pretty nice sized. Or this one actually is. It's a very small sized. I actually don't think you actually spell steal this one. You kind of just purge it, which I kind of wish that was changed, but it's whatever. But it is pretty beneficial. Obviously, one GCD for like a 30%, getting rid of 30% of their effective EHP is pretty beneficial. So. Now here, I had more than 10 seconds left in my Comet Storm. The general rule is if you have more than 10 seconds with Comet Storm, you do not save. If you have less than 10 seconds, you save your Cold combo, as long as you're going to have it up. I didn't have it. I think it was 13 seconds there, so I did not save. And then going through how you want to be consuming your Winter's Chill, it's basically always Glacial Spike is top priority, Ice Lance is next, and then Frostfire Bolt is after that. Those are really the only 3 spells that consume your Frostfire Bolt, or your Winter's Chill. Sorry. There's not a whole lot going on with this pack. This area also has, if you have Enchanting on your tune, which I don't. I also just learned this recently as well. If you have Enchanting, this center console, you can do a channel, and it's like a 4-second channel, and it does like a 10-second stun. So. The one thing that I do like doing on this pack, obviously you always want to be focusing the pack speaker. You want to be having the minimal amount of erratic rituals, which is this AoE cast, as possible, as well as when he spawns a spirit. Try and be using a defensive every time this erratic ritual happens. It's primarily going to be the only damage going out in this fight, other than if an arcing zap or a bolt goes out. There is an instance here. I do actually end up saving. I always try saving a flurry charge for this instance, and as well having a glacial spike that's going to be available. You need to target the spirit basically the second that it spawns. I didn't actually save I did end up having one rather closely, or rather soon. But you see it's a 40 million health shield. The longer that this is up, the pack speaker gets a shield that increases the longer the spirit is alive. So you need to be killing. You need to swap to this and kill it as soon as possible, because the consumed spirit shield is actually pretty big. But you see my glacial spike there. I basically killed them from almost like 20 million to nothing with glacial spike and my icicles there, or my ice lances. Obviously my teammates were hitting as well, but the longer that mob is up is the bigger health that shield that this guy gets, and obviously which means more erratic rituals, potential for more ghosts getting spawned. So basically this is always the prowl target in these fights, is the pack speaker. Other than that, just standard AoE rotation, using your defenses here when you can. I almost always want Mirror Image running here, just to try and have it out for when the erratic ritual is happening. And if you can, Alter Time it, or... and then this is also where I use my Diverted Energy a little bit to gain some health. I'll take like a tick or two of the erratic ritual and then use my barrier. That way, not only do I have the shield, but I'm also getting the health benefit from my talent. So you see, this is where I'm saving another Glacial Spike cast. It's basically dead by the time I do Glacial Spike Flurry. Which, Glacial Spike Flurry, like I said earlier, your Pyro won't benefit, but your Glacial Spike still will. So that's okay. Basically, by the time I Glacial Spike Flurry, Lance, it's dead. And you see the health, the barrier here is probably like a 10% barrier. But yeah, you basically just need to make sure you're targeting the ritual, or the pack speakers and the spirits down as soon as possible. Again, focusing Ritualists here, mobs that don't move, because the Runestalkers move and the Bird Creepers move. I probably could be focusing the Crush Elemental here, just because the Elemental is putting barriers on people. That would probably be the most beneficial in this instance. But the Waste Creepers do actually have the most health in these packs, so if I'm trying to speed up this pack as much as I can, go to the Waste Creepers, which it looks like I actually did end up switching to them. This is the best in terms of like trying to manage how long the fight's going. This is why priority damage is really important in keys, because even if you kill, if like one mob has, let's say it's just 1 million and everybody else has 500k health, if you're all doing AoE to all the mobs and you kill all the 500 HP mobs at the same time, but the 1 mil health guy still has 500k health left, you are still, that pull is still going to last until that 500k from that million health guy is dead. So try and prioritize as much prior target damage as you can. Obviously, Frost Mage has a lot of funnel in terms of our Comet Storm with our orbs and blizzards and everything. But yeah. Now, since there's nothing else going on in this, in terms of there's literally just 2 casters, it's the Ritualist and then the Pack Speaker. I'm always targeting the Pack Speaker. I would never worry about anything other than the Pack Speaker in this instance. I should probably be shifting powering here in order to get Icy Veins back in time, so that I have full stack of Death's Chill by the time that this Consumed Spirit is spawned. I didn't have full stacks, but I am immediately swapping to the Spirit, and again, same thing as before. I have my Glacial Spike Flurry already lined up and ready to go the second that the Spirit spawns. It's very important for us to basically, like I said before, immediately kill the Spirit as fast as possible. Now, I didn't really care there to have my 12 stacks of Death's Chill. I probably should have, or I could have done my shifting power a little sooner so that I had it, but it was more important for me to actually kill the Consuming Spirit and not use my globals to try and maximize my Death's Chill stacks there versus killing the Consuming Spirit faster. So I sent it with 9 Death's Chill stacks, which was obviously good enough already. That was 9 stacks, so 9% spell damage versus just nothing if I didn't have Icy Veins rolling. But you see here again, I'm min-maxing my Diverter Energy. I'm taking a few ticks. The last one, I just actually alter timed it. But I'm waiting here, I take a few ticks, and now I'm barriering. And now I am getting some heals, but a lot of that is also just my barrier, because the 2 stacks of Diverter Energy, the talent, I believe is a 40% heal of your barrier, and your barrier is around 40%-ish of your health. So it's actually it's pretty beneficial, considering it's almost like 20% of your HP is how much you're getting healed from it. So again, here I'm alter timing. The only other damage going out here will be the Far Stalker doing its dash on you. So like that, you need to be aware. Don't try and game the system if you're alter timing. If you know that a Far Stalker can jump at any time. You saw the Far Stalker hit me through my barrier as well as like 50% of my health. So again, same thing as before. Save the Glacial Spike and Flurry, and it's dead by the time my Glacial Spike Flurry Lance is done. That's pretty much as fast as you can do it. Or at least in my eyes, that's the best instance of using it there. Now, for this Erratic Ritual, I know the Far Stalker was still alive. I probably could have Ice Colded here, but instead I decided to set in G-Invis. I just G-Invised there at the start, knowing that I was going to be taking a few ticks of the Erratic Ritual with no barrier or anything else going on. I didn't have Alter Time, so I sent G-Invis as my defensive there. Here, I'm assuming I use Alter Time. Yep, Alter Timing at full HP. Alter Time back to full. Now for this boss, the first one is always just going to be a single instance of damage. Obviously, there's damage going out through the entire fight, which unfortunately as a mage is basically our worst incoming damage profile, is just constant taking damage. We are very good at surviving big hits of damage. We have a lot of defensive support. Our barrier, G-Invis, 2 ice blocks, mass barrier. Basically any taking fight is always one of our weaknesses. But the way this fight works is there's always a single tick of a single fight of damage. Wow, I can't speak. It's taking damage over time, and then there's always 3 phases and then an intermission. So it's always this Whisper of Fate, as always happens first, and you need to collect your spirit. That's a single instance of damage. The second one that goes off during the phase is going to be 2 ticks of damage. It's going to be an initial hit when you get it, and then an initial hit at the very single end when the explosion happens. I kind of want to pause because there's a very important thing for this part of the intermission. Then after that, it's going back to the one single hit, the Whispers of Fate, and that's just a 1 hit. So if you can, use your big defensives, so your G-Invis and stuff like that, for the second one, where you're going to be taking 2 instances of damage. Now for this phase, when you walk into this room, you're walking into it from over here. The way that you want to be stationed for intermission, so anytime he does the intermission, is there's this weird geometry on the floor, or just how the landscaping is. Always get the first spirit that spawns in the intermission. Always get the one that's in this area. So I'll show you when the intermission is starting. I go over near there. So it's Eternal Weave. I'm making my way over here. Every single time, always get your first spirit that's in this general area. So it's like the top right of the room when you're first entering there. So you see, I'm collecting my spirit here. I'm getting my damage amp, damage and healing amp. If you can, try and game this system as long as possible. Now I have my second damage amp. And you always want to be going counterclockwise. I probably could have saved that one a little longer to maximize, but now I have 3 stacks, and I don't need to worry about this anymore. Always go from the weird geometry, so this area over here, and go counterclockwise. Always go to your right. That is the best instance for maximizing the uptime of your of the damage amp. I also like using Lust when you have the damage amp, but it's not. If you're gonna lose a Lust or something, or you're not gonna get full value, just send it otherwise. But so again, here's the first one happened, the Whispers of Fate. Here's the second Whispers of Fate going on. This is where it's gonna be 2 instances of damage. So the first one, when it's in the lines, you just need to collect yours, and that's the only instance of damage going out. The second one, he'll apply this thing to you, the circle. You need to collect yours, and then a second instance happens. And then the third one is just the single instance of damage again. Again, like I said, try and use your big defensives for that second one. Obviously, if you need to use them for the other ones, that works too. Just make sure you don't die. It is a pretty hefty hit. But you saw I alter timed there. You can also use alter time to gain the charge of blink back or something. Obviously, if you have Shimmer, you have 2 charges already, but I only have blink. But again, now this is going to be intermission, starting by this geometry again in the boss room. Collecting my orb immediately, or as soon as possible. Collecting my second one, going counterclockwise again. I probably could wait a little longer, because now I'm going to be losing this pretty quickly. You can maximize that third one a lot. I think the first one you'll need to get pretty almost immediately or as soon as you can. The second one you can wait until I think it's like 5 seconds left on the debuff or something along those lines. And then the third one you can wait until there's like 2 or something, so you can really game the last one. Sometimes I try to alter time the hits just so that I'm back at full HP. Not really a requirement. If you have Mass Barrier, which you should, I always try sending Mass Barrier for the second set just so that everybody has some sort of defensive for when both of the instances happen. So you see I Mass Barriered here. And then I have my own barrier. Personally, if you can, always try and send your own barrier first, just because the cooldown is shorter. And then if you're running the talents on the right side of the tree, the class tree, you'll also actually get some CDR back from your own barrier getting destroyed. I believe, I'm not 100% positive on this one, but I believe that if you have Mass Barrier up and your normal barrier cooldown, your normal barrier is also on CD, your normal barrier CD also benefits for that talent if you use Mass Barrier. But other than that was this key. That's the 17 Eco Domo Dani. We timed with 27 seconds left. So this was, again, full pug group. I ended with 8.38 million. I barely lost the Frost DK. I literally lost on the last global. But Frost Mage has pretty good prio, pretty good AoE. It's kind of like a mix of all trades, which unfortunately, when you're in an M plus scenario, isn't the best kind of damage profile to have, because a lot of the things you're missing are the prio damage, like of an Arcane Mage or a Havoc DH or things like that. Really does speed up keys, and is why they're brought to keys. So make sure you're really focusing on your priority damage while doing your AoE. Don't only focus on your AoE damage, because prio damage is actually much more important than the AoE damage. Any of the other specs this season pretty much match like your AoE damage, or might be a little bit better. But other than that, those are kind of like my tips and tricks for Eco Domodani. As I continue to do keys and push keys, I'll continue doing commentaries for these. I'm going to try and get back into the groove of things, and I want to try doing a commentary for every single key this season before I loop back around to some of the other ones and doing them again. But as time goes on, I'll also probably, as well as doing commentaries, I'll also just upload just the key itself without commentary over it, just so those can be watched. But almost all the time, I will always be highlighting them on my Twitch whenever I time like a title key or any key that is really giving me IO, or a key that I might do a commentary on. I'll always just highlight it on my Twitch, so you guys can always find it there. If you guys don't know my Twitch, I'll always leave it in the description of the videos, but it's twitch.tv/thegumbies. If you can't really find that either, you can always just look my name up on Raider.io, Oreos Master, and I have my Twitch linked on there as well. Other than that, that's going to be it for the commentary for this 17 Eco Domodani for a Frost Mage, and that'll be it for now. So thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary.